May it please your honour, I appear on behalf of the applicant in this matter. My learned friend appears on behalf of the respondent. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Sonia and I'm a barrister, although I no longer go to court, and I am an advocacy coach. And I've spent many years in courtrooms and in the classrooms, and I know a thing or two about advocacy. The first thing I would say is that you're not paid by the word. So, as an advocate, judges do not measure your value by the syllable count. Less is more. Judges, in fact, value brevity. In fact, the best gift that you can give a judge is to be brief, succinct, and to the point. Judges will not appreciate an advocate who wants to elucidate the court on the niceties of a particular statute or try to impress them with a very lengthy submission. Judges haven't got time for that. So be short, precise, and to the point. Now, unfortunately, before I stepped into a courtroom, I thought that the longer you went on, the longer you spent addressing the court, the more effective and impactful I would be. Now, why did I think that? Because when I did my mini pupillages, so for those of you who don't know what mini pupillages are, they're a period of shadowing. So it's kind of like work experience for those who have not qualified as barristers. And so I did a few mini pupillages and I'd go to court. And the advocates that I was impressed by were those who would just go on. They would just talk and talk and talk. And I would think, wow, how impressive. They can talk for hours and they're so articulate. I wasn't thinking about the substance of what they were saying. I was just impressed by the fact that they could talk eloquently and articulately for a long period of time. What I didn't realize at the time was that quite often the best advocates are the ones who are able to condense their points, their submissions succinctly and clearly. So that was a valuable lesson. And how did I learn that lesson? Well, when I first began practicing at the bar, if I were going to be making a submission or an application to the judge, I would spend hours preparing my submissions. And I'd go into court expecting to have the floor, all eyes on me. The judge would fire off a number of questions, and I wouldn't be able to make my points in the way that I had wanted to make my points. The judge just wanted me to get to the point. So the judge would ask me loads and loads of questions and would then have enough information for them to make up their mind about whether or not to grant my application or to accede to my submission. So what I would suggest to all of you watching in the YouTube universe or Tuberverse, I would suggest that less is more. And as I said, the best advocates, the most eloquent and articulate and persuasive advocates are those who are erudite. I also wish I'd known that one bad day in court is more valuable than 10 successful days. Now, those of you in the YouTuberverse may be thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. Everybody wants to win. The point I'm making is that you learn more from your failures than from your successes. So if you think about entrepreneurs, when you read their autobiographies, quite often they will have had lots of unsuccessful ventures before becoming successful. And they always say that they learnt from those failures. They learned valuable lessons that they were then able to take into their next venture. And hence, the next venture, it might be the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, became successful. Well, it's the same with advocacy. I have learned my biggest and best lessons from my failures. And I actually have a video about my courtroom mistakes and humiliations on YouTube, so check it out if you need to. But I would emphasize that actually failing is very beneficial and is a good learning experience. The next lesson that I learned very early on and that I wish I'd known before stepping into the courtroom is that you don't have to be posh. So, as I said, when I did my mini pupilages, I observed barristers in court and they all sounded more or less the same. They all sounded posh. And so I thought, well, in order to be successful and in order to be seen as competent, you have to be posh. I'm not posh. And so when I went into court, I initially adopted an accent that really wasn't mine. May it please your honour, I appear on behalf of the applicant in this matter. My learned friend appears on behalf of the respondent. Your honour, this is an application for an interim injunction. That's not me. And so I would say this. Be authentic. Use your own voice. You don't have to be posh. So if you don't have a posh accent naturally, do not adopt one. And the reason for that is because you will be seen as being inauthentic. So let me just tell you what I mean by that. I don't know if you've seen a film with Denzel Washington. I can't remember the name of the film, but in it, he plays a British soldier and he adopts a British accent. It's a really bad accent. I love Denzel Washington, but the accent was not good. So he adopts this accent, and because he's not able to maintain this accent, sometimes he drops back into his natural accent. So the American accent sometimes comes through, and it's really cringy. Well, that's what can happen when you adopt an accent that isn't yours. Your natural accent will come through, and it will expose your inauthenticity. And nobody likes inauthenticity, particularly juries. So you'll lose credibility. So I would urge you to keep the accent that you have, um, love the accent that you have. You don't need to be posh. In fact, I think that if you have an accent that is interesting, that is non-standard perhaps, then you're going to be engaging. People are going to find your accent interesting, and therefore you may find that people listen to you more intently and intensely if you have an accent. So don't be afraid of having an accent as long as you are clear, articulate, precise, doesn't matter. At this point of the video, I do want to talk to you about something that I've been working on for a long, long time, and it's my advocacy membership. And in this advocacy membership, we have masterclasses given by members of the bar and other experienced and well-regarded lawyers. So they deliver masterclasses on all aspects of advocacy skills. In addition, we have the monthly advocacy club, and that's where you get to practice in front of me and other qualified advocacy trainers and coaches. And you will have an opportunity in community to practice a particular advocacy skill. So it's all very exciting. There's other things, of course, included in the membership. We have written resources. The full membership will launch this year. Please put your name down on the wait list. The link is below if you're interested. Okay, back to the video. Aggression impresses no one. I would suggest that you don't be aggressive in court, either to the witnesses, particularly the judge, and certainly not with your opponent. That's just my view. When I first started out, I used to watch a lot of courtroom dramas on TV. One of my favorites was LA Law. And quite often the cross-examinations would consist of the advocate shouting at the witness, berating the witness, telling the witness that they're lying, and then there would be the odd gotcha moment. Let me tell you, being aggressive is not effective and it will not win you friends. Jurors don't like aggressive advocates. Judges don't like aggressive advocates. And in fact, I was watching a lecture given by a judge who sits at the Old Bailey, and she was talking about cross-examination, and she said that one of her pet hates is aggressive counsel. She said that she winces when an advocate is overly aggressive with a witness. She looks at the jury and she can see that the jury is also having the same reaction. She says it's unnecessary, it's unethical, and it doesn't work. It's ineffective. And I agree with that. By all means, be firm if you need to be robust if you need to be, but don't be aggressive, hostile, or rude. The final thing I would say is that knowing the law is not enough. I didn't know that before I first stepped into the courtroom. I thought that if you knew the law, if you knew the statutes that you were going to be relying on, if you knew the case law that you were going to be relying on or that your opponent was going to be relying on, and you could present your arguments appropriately and persuasively, that would be enough. No, it's not enough. Being an effective and powerful advocate isn't just about knowing the law. It's about judgment. It's about strategy and tactics. It's about emotional intelligence. There is so much more at play in the courtroom. So, for example, stamina. You have to be mentally strong in order to be able to concentrate for 6 hours, sometimes longer, a day, 5 days a week. You have to be able to deal with unpredictable moments in court. That's why crime, in my view, is the best area of law to practice because no 2 days are alike. There are so many unpredictable things that happen in court. And so you have to be able to deal with the unpredictability. You have to be able to think on your feet. So knowing the law is just a starting point. So those are 5 things that I wish I had known before I first stepped into that courtroom. I hope you found this video useful. If you're interested in joining the Advocacy Tutor membership, then click on the link below. See you in the next video.